Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, and I am with Andy Rossi for the Evolution Movie Show. But Andy, it's season 2, and you know, with season 2, we've been having guests on, and this week I have a fun one. Are you excited to meet him?
I can't wait.
This week, we are bringing on a very good friend of mine, the guy who is the host of the Mac Mania show on Spotify and The Ringer. He is Evan T MACK.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on?
What's going on? That setup is amazing.
Oh, I'm honored to be on here with you gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Great.
I'm doing great. Andy, how are you today?
I'm great. I just love Evans. I mean, he's got like my childhood back there. We got Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, NBA Jam.
I'm trying to hold on to my nostalgia, brother. Just it's one of those things I always promise myself, man. I said if I go back and if I get a moment, let me just go get the things that I've lost or misplaced or got broken or we had to give up. Let me try to recapture some of that youth, baby.
Nice.
Yeah, and if you're on the audio version, tough luck. You don't get to see what's on there. I'm not even going to explain it. You just got to deal with it.
You got to give people something.
Nope. Just very interesting. Very cool. If you're on the audio version, hit the like button and then go
Use
to
your
YouTube.
imagination.
That's so great.
So thanks for being on the show. This is the Evolution of Movies show. And for those of you who are new to the show, we call it the Evolution of Movies because what we do is we'll watch a movie and then we chat about it like it's a book club. But it's called the Evolution of Movies because we always watch a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So we started in 1980, went to 1981, 1982. Now we're all the way to 1991.
Damn.
Back in a time when movie theaters had hits like Cape Fear,
Slapper.
Point Break, and
Slapper.
of course, Suburban Commando.
Slapper.
Wow.
We're not talking about any of those.
And I wish we were.
I wish we did. I can't say that.
Now I got FOMO. I wish I saw those, but
You got to rethink your strategy here. Suburban Commando, baby. It's a pivot. It's a pivot.
We're changing it all. Suburban Commando. No, but we're talking about Terminator 2, a movie IMDb describes as a cyborg identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor must now protect her 10-year-old son, John, from a more advanced and powerful cyborg. This is one of the most classic action movies of all time. And Evan, I want to get your thoughts, but before I do, real quick, I always like to have Andy try to guess what he thinks the Rotten Tomato score is.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I mean, this was like my favorite movie as a kid, like aside from maybe some Van Damme movies. But so I always held it very high. And I think other people did too. So I'm gonna go high on this one, Jack. I'm gonna say like 97.
97, about as high as you can go, Evan. Now that means I kick it to you. Do you take the over or the under? Do you think it's higher or lower than 97%?
I'm gonna go lower, but not by much. I do believe I'm weird about Rotten Tomatoes because they're fickle. So
Yeah.
So it's hard to gauge where they at. But I do believe it's in the 90s. I do believe it's close to mid 90s. I think he's a little lower though. I think it's a little 97 is like 97 is steep. Even though I think it's 100, but that's just me.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, was 97, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I can see that.
But Terminator 2 coming in at 93%. So it is one of the highest ranking ones. I think the only ones that are higher than it this year so far is Ghostbusters and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I believe it.
I should keep track. I don't. I just kind of.
I do believe Terminator 2 should be about 99, 100. No. All jokes aside.
Yeah. Well, Evan, let me ask you: had you seen Terminator 2 before this, and what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
Yeah, no, I did, but I rewatched it again just to keep it fresh. But no, this one of those movies that holds up. We're talking about a movie that's more than 30 years old, and it still holds up. It's because it's James Cameron doing what James Cameron does. He knows how to bring a little more stability to. Like he's like Spielberg's my favorite when it comes to grounding insanity. You know what I mean? So like, but Cameron is right next to him in the regards of that the scene, the motorcycle scene alone. But like, it's still just as good. It's intense. It's fun. It's brutal. It's violent. It's funny. It's everything you want in a 90s movie, and this is the reason why 90s movies are very special, and you don't see anything like them still.
It's and something that I talked to Andy on Sunday actually, and we didn't talk much about the movie, but I did say that what's crazy about this movie, and Evan, to your point, how well it aged. I mean, the special effects, even don't get me wrong, if these special effects came out today, we'd say what's going on, but there was nothing that was embarrassing about the special effects. So many other movies you see now, and you're like, oh, that looks horrible, but this, and Andy, I'll let you talk on it. It all like you're like that actually looks pretty good still. It doesn't look embarrassing. I wouldn't be embarrassed to show someone this anymore.
Yeah, that's what I was most nervous about, because I haven't seen this movie in a minute, and like going back and seeing some of the CGI and the T-1000, you know, stuffs, I was like, looks good, still looks good.
Why not?
It's and Evan, you had mentioned a little bit about something about this movie is over 2 hours. Now I have this thing where if a movie goes over 2 hours, you need to justify every second.
Oh, you better believe it, because I say it, Gone is the lost art of the 90-minute film.
Yes.
We grew up in the era with 90-minute movies.
Yeah, that was what was expected. It was 90 minutes, an hour and a half, and that's why I want to kick it to you, because James Cameron, he has a way of liking to give you a little bit more. But this movie, I thought it flew by. It's the classic. Like I didn't feel like I watched a 2.5 hour movie.
It's funny you say that, because that, just to your point, I didn't even realize it was. I didn't realize the runtime of the film, and that's the make of a good film. You should not have to look at your watch when you're watching a movie. Now, you shouldn't anyway. You should give your undivided attention, but it's not your fault if a movie's dragging along. You just happen to look down at your watch, or you happen to yawn. It's because that maybe the movie's not grasping and holding your attention as long as it could. James Cameron, when you're James Cameron, you do whatever the hell you want. That's why he's spending 19 years on 3 Avatar movies. But we just hope everyone's alive to watch these movies. Right. They're gonna be really good. I go, well, if we're here in the year 3000, yes. He's like, don't worry, guys. I'll be. I go, I'm sure you will, bro. But like,
our grandkids are gonna love them.
Like, good Lord, bro. But no, like when you watch that film, and just like you said, I had no clue that movie was over 2 hours. If you would have asked me that movie was 2, I would have said you're a liar. That movie flies by. That's crazy, man.
Yes, I think it's 2:20, somewhere around.
That's insane.
Because it was funny. I started it, and I started late at night to pull back the curtain. I was like, I'll have to watch. Oh, it's this long. I'm gonna have to watch like half today, half tomorrow, and then it was finishing. I was like, oh my gosh, I watched the whole movie. It's late. I got to get up early. Oh, but anyways, I dealt with it. But let's get into the movie. Before we do, I always like to say thanks to everyone who's watching, listening, commenting, subscribing, sharing, 5-star reviewing. Leave a 5-star review with a nice little note. It always tickles me when I see something nice written there. But let's get into the movie, shall we? Let's talk about this thing. We start, and it's a busy day, and kids are playing. Nope. Everything's destroyed. It's the distant future of Los Angeles in 2029, and skulls litter the ground as we're told that 1997 brought Judgment Day, killing 3 billion people with the rest left in a battle with the machines. Lasers and explosions are everywhere, and it's explained that the machines have sent back a robot to kill John Connor, and the Resistance has sent back a familiar robot as a protector. Evan, this is just the very beginning of the movie, but I want you to tell me about the world that has been built and what we can expect from the characters that live within it.
What you can expect is that this is pandemonium, especially if you watch the first film. So if you're watching the first film, it could be a little bit jarring, because you know Schwarzenegger's in it, and this one, Schwarzenegger's rising and rising and rising as a superstar and one of the greatest of all time. But so you're thinking to yourself, okay, they're bringing back Schwarzenegger because he's Schwarzenegger. How can we do it? And they figured out a way to do it by, they just reprogrammed him, and now he's a good guy. But now you're starting to think, if you're watching the first movie and you're invested in the first movie, but how is Miss Lyndall Hamilton, how is she going to respond to this guy? Like, okay, we ain't got to worry about that right now. We got Schwarzenegger right now. So what is going to be the dynamic in this film? The whole first movie, she's running away from Schwarzenegger. In this movie, she's there to protect John Connor and everything that goes between. So it's one of those things where your heart is already emotionally invested and see how she's going to respond, because her whole entire life has been dictated by this moment, and everyone thinks she's crazy. And now she has to look even more crazy, because she might have to fight alongside this madman.
Machine.
Cybernetic organism.
Andy, what was interesting is we talked about aliens in this, and we thought it was interesting how Alien was sort of a tense one alien movie, and then he makes Aliens, which is like, hey, now there's a bunch of them, it's more action based. Also Terminator, kind of a tense one robot movie. Now there's a couple of them, and now it's more of an action movie in this change. I'd love for you to speak on that. And also, what were they thinking? The Terminator failed the first time. Why are they sending him to protect him? This guy's a loser.
He did okay. He did okay.
Yeah, you know, well, the beginning, first of all, the beginning is amazing. Just like seeing those robots and just
it's intense.
As a kid, I was terrified. Like, oh, this doesn't seem too far in the future. Like, is this going to happen?
Oh, I was shook.
Yeah. I can't beat up a robot.
But I was thinking the same thing you just said. Like, at least this time around, I was like, they only sent one guy, and then they sent another one guy to go against him. I don't know. I would think if you want to kill John Connor, send like 40. Like, I'm wondering why they sent one robot.
I mean, it's not like they were low on robots. That's what I was saying. Yeah, you got to kill them. Why don't you send like 100?
Yeah.
In fact, while we're at it, just start the war in the past.
This is complex science. It takes a lot to send the body. They got to come there butt naked. They got to find clothes.
Yeah.
It's complex, baby.
You know, you mentioned the naked part. Let's, as we continue on.
7 minutes in, by the way.
Yeah.
7 minutes. We see
a naked man is sent back through time, and what a man he is. He's not a man at all, though. He's a butt-naked killing machine, and he goes looking for clothes. He gets burned, stabbed, and everything else, but Arnold still wrecks everyone in the biker bar, and Bad to the Bone plays as one of the baddest-looking characters in movie history, grabs a gun and some shades, and is off to save the original emo kid, John Connor.
Furlong!
He's kind of a jerk to his foster parents, but meanwhile, Sarah Connor's doing pull-ups in the mental institution because no one believes her story of future robots, which is the name of my band's first album, by the way. Nice. Probably because she's a troublemaker like her son. Finally, in this beginning part, another naked fella steals a cop car and a cop outfit. He's the T-1000, and he shows up to John's house, and his foster parents give the T-1000 a photo of John and tell the T-1000 that someone else, a big dude on a bike, is also looking for John Connor. Evan, this is the true introduction of our cast of characters throughout this part, where they're sort of showing us this is John Connor, this is Sarah Connor, this is the different robots. Tell us a little bit about these characters and how they're developing very quickly, but very well.
The development of Sarah Connor is probably one of the best parts. As you see in the first movie, she's a little more she's afraid. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know what happens. When you roll up on her in this movie, now she's preparing. Now she's training. Now she gets it. Now she survived this first wave. Now she knows that she has to protect the world at all costs, protect her son at all costs, start this resistance herself. So she's getting in shape and just preparing for what might happen again. So, but then when you got a little upstart, he's upset. Mr. John Connor, he's upset, not knowing what the gravity of what he is, but he's upset because now he doesn't have his mom. Now he has to deal with these foster parents. He's kind of angry at his mother, but he's just angry about his circumstances as well. So like, and it's really easy to pull for a kid like that because you feel for him because you've seen the first movie. Mm-hmm. Then you got the old T-1000, man. Line the weeds, the old upgrade, the great Robert Patrick in his bag. I'm telling you right now, one of the greatest characters in the history of films is the T-1000. He is one of the scariest. That's one of my thoughts. I'm terrified of that guy. Mm-hmm. All you need to know is there is a scary cybernetic organism out there to kill John Connor. And literally the first time you see him, he almost, even with his stature, he puts to bed everything Arnold did in the first movie, which is crazy to even think about.
You and Andy, I definitely want to get to you, but I want to follow up on that because yes, the T-1000, possibly one of the greatest movie villains of all time. So terrifying. He plays that role perfectly. But Evan, I have this question for you as a follow-up. When I saw this actor, I'd call him the T-1000 forever. Like I don't even know his name. He's T-1000 and everything he does. But I have to ask you now, has he changed from being the T-1000? Is he now Peacemaker's dad?
Yeah, but listen, the great Robert Patrick. It took me years and years and years to recognize him anything but. And I think that comes with age when you start to turn and you get a little gray and you start losing your physical fitness. Just like old Al Bundy used to be Al Bundy. Then all of a sudden he got a little softer around certain areas. And I stopped calling him Al Bundy. So I will now call him Peacemaker's daddy.
Andy, I want to talk to you about how smart it is the way they dress up these robots, because they're robots. So technically, like, they don't have any personal fashion or style, but they just grab the clothes closest to them. But the way they make Arnold Schwarzenegger, the cool, badass biker, and the T-1000, the square cop, the police officer, and how the way they dress, while they don't care, as a viewer, instantly makes you think one is cool and one is not.
Yeah, I mean, just the introduction of Arnold is amazing. I love that scene so much. Him naked, which he looks great shape for Arnold.
Anybody that's hating, they don't look like that naked. That's all. Comes from.
I mean, man, okay. That's a man.
That's a man. That's a man.
that's my takeaway. That's a man.
That's a man. That's a big fella.
But he comes in that biker bar, and it's so fun to watch because you know that he's just gonna mess these dudes up. And I love the guy that burns the cigar in him, because his face after he burns him with the cigar, like, and what does he say? I need your bike and your boots
and your clothes.
I would have been like, yep.
Sure.
That's whatever you need, pal. A guy that big walks in butt naked, I'd be like, this guy's on drugs or something. I'm not messing with him. What do you need? I would not question him. Whatever you need, this guy is crazy. I'm not the one to stop him.
Yeah, and then the one guy runs after him. He says, "Sorry, son, can't have you take his bike." I'm like, you just saw what he did in there, right?
Yeah. Did you see his work?
That guy must have been taking a piss or something and maybe not seeing what happened.
Oh yeah, he was somewhere. He was like in the kitchen, wait staff somewhere.
Like, some naked guy just took John's bike. Oh, well, let me go figure this out.
He must have been in there for a while then, because Arnold got fully dressed before he came out with the gun. So it didn't happen quick.
It's crisp editing, Jack Farmer. It's crisp. It's James Cameron at his best.
But it was great though when that guy does come out and he just walks towards him. You're like, oh no, and then he just grabs the sunglasses and just so. I mean, can't get any cooler than that.
I'm going to use the word iconic a lot, but that look, the Terminator look in the leather jacket and glasses and everything. Yeah. Again, one of the most iconic, I think, characters in movie history.
Yeah. The shotgun, the bike. Yeah. And it's such a sick bike too that he's got too. They don't give him like a little dirt bike or something. It's got a nice like Harley. Yeah.
Funny. He's got a little moped he's riding around.
He's on a Vespa. Yeah. And the thing is, I still think he'd look badass.
Yeah, he would. I wouldn't argue with him.
Yeah, that's true.
So Sarah Connor is freaking out in an old video at the Institute, but because the world is ending, but now she's trying to play it cool, and now she's saying that there are no future robots, but the doctor is onto her scheme. So she just attacks the doctor and gets sedated. Meanwhile, John Connor is robbing an ATM, and he explains that his mom is locked up because she tried to blow up a computer company. He heads over to the arcade as the robots get closer. T-1000 finds him first, and a chase begins. And now Arnold is here. Arnold shoots the T-1000, and we get the liquid metal, which is the name of my band's second album, by the way. They shoot it out in the hallway. They fight in the hallway, and then the brouhaha goes into the mall. John tries to run, but you can't outrun the T-1000. We get one of the most iconic moments in action history as the T-1000 chases John in the truck, jumping off the bridge. Arnold finally catches up and is able to make the T-1000's truck explode, allowing Arnold and John Connor to escape, but the T-1000 is alive still. Also, Dyson is looking at some very highly secure stuff, like a Terminator arm. Andy, I love this little moment, the T-1000 looking at the metal mannequin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So great.
Just a little like, kind of, what's that?
Almost disrespectfully.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole chase scene is insane though. Like watching it again, I was just hoping that everything was gonna hold up, and it certainly does. I mean, that chase through the arcade, and and I got to give a shout out to his little mullet friend for being like, no, never seen him before. And giving John a little
can we give him some flowers, please? Can we give the man some flowers, staring the T-1000 in the eyes and kick rocks, being like, who?
Yeah, just exactly what you want from a friend. Did it exactly right. I don't know who he is. Going over to him, hey, get out of here. I'll stall him.
John, who?
By the way, he was from Salute Your Shorts, if
yes,
I'm not
he
mistaken.
was. Yes, he was.
Campanawana.
Legend.
But this was, and Evan, I want to talk about this run through this chase scene. I remember thinking this chase scene, again, one of the biggest moments in the movie, and I knew this was a longer movie. I was like, oh my God, this is like the big scene.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do for the next 2 hours? This is one of those movies that so many things like, oh yeah, this was big. This was big.
Mm-hmm.
But this chase scene, Evan, and him jumping off the bridge and everything, I feel, and the spinning gun shooting, just incredible stuff.
One of the greatest scenes in movie history, action movie history for sure, is the scene. It's so well done. It's so well orchestrated. There's a lot of practical effects. I'm a big fan of practical effects, even in modern day cinema. You cannot get better than practical effects because at the end of the day, nothing's better than real.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I'm a firm believer in respecting these filmmakers that exhaust every single possibility before they go to CGI. And if you want to watch a movie that does everything they can and only use the CGI when it matters. By the way, the first feature-length CGI in an action movie or any movie, I believe, of all time is Terminator 2, by the way. James Cameron's always on the cutting edge of stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that T-1000 liquid foolishness that never even existed before he even got a hold of it. So like, but to watch that scene, to watch the truck and the motorcycle, him doing something with a shotgun that I guarantee you no one on earth thought you could do until you saw that movie.
Yes.
There's so many
locks.
They're like, wait a minute, what the hell is he doing with his one hand? Are you serious right now? He's cocking this thing with one hand as he's driving a motorcycle. Guys, on literally, if many movies you've seen, the only thing I've seen close to this kind of action of precision is Mad Max Fury Road, as far as its brilliance and the way it's shot. And you want to see a beautifully shot action sequence. This scene here, damn near should have saved it to the end of the movie. That's the first. That's the first act.
Yeah. They just started this. That shotgun thing is so cool. And it's so just the way he spins it and just keeps shooting. And this is where you get that feeling of just how dangerous the T-1000 is too, because you realize he doesn't care about getting hurt because he's a robot. So like when he goes under the low bridge and it takes the top off the car and he's like, whatever, driving. Like, oh my God, this guy just doesn't stop. And you said the liquid metal. Now we're spoiled because we know about it, but the idea just seems so out there. What about metal that's liquid and the way it looks when he gets shot and it's just closing, just nightmare fuel. It's incredible.
His mannerisms are great too. Just his like running style too. It's just like, who runs like that? Like,
perfection.
and it's terrifying.
No one could do it like Robert does it.
Run. No.
You could not recast that. If you could give me 100 people, I could never replace that dude's performance.
Not to go off on a tangent, but just real quick, because there's also so much more to it. But there's a part of me that always thought that that's why the sequels were kind of doomed, is because T-1000 was such a good villain. You're never getting a better villain than that T-1000, and all other villains they came up with paled in comparison to the T-1000. I don't think anyone ever lived up to it.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's other things that is a whole
different
podcast.
We don't need to get into.
We don't, but for now, I just thought you had the best villain.
I think everyone too was really great at the time too. I loved Linda Hamilton's transformation from Terminator 2, just to see her all buffed up now and all kind of badass, where the first one she was a little bit more of a damsel in distress, at least in comparison. And you got Arnold at the peak and Robert Patrick in his early days and young Edward Furlong is good.
So for those of you who are listening or watching, we had a little situation pop up. Evan had to take off for a little bit. Maybe he'll be back by the end. But for now, Andy, we're just going to continue chatting about Terminator 2.
Yeah.
So we get to this part where John Connor figures out that Arnold is a robot. So Arnold explains the plot of the movie to John Connor. After using some fun voices, he tells John Connor that his fake mom and dad are dead. John Connor finds himself in Terminator Therapy, the name of my band's third album, by the way, as he talks about how he can't believe his mom was right about everything. During this, John realizes that Arnold will do anything John tells him, starting with going to save Sarah Connor. Sneaky Sarah gets something to pick her locks while being questioned by the police, and after a good licking by her orderly, he gets to picking. Good timing, because the T-1000 is coming out of the floor and stabbing a cop in the eyeball. Sarah beats the crap out of the licking lad and sticks a Drano syringe in a dude's neck before running into Arnold, who beats up all the people that said that they didn't believe he existed. The same thing will happen with Santa Claus one day. Mark my words. He says the famous line, "Come with me if you want to live." And we get another chase as the T-1000 goes through prison bars, pries open elevator doors, and gets his head split open by a shotgun blast.
Wow.
They get in the car, and another epic chase scene goes to the streets as the T-1000 crawls up the back of the car. Arnold eventually shoots him off the back of it, and the good guys get away as the T-1000 gets a nice bike. Lots of stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. You know what? The thing that I thought was really cool when I first watched this is how intelligent the Terminator is when he's talking to the foster parents, and he asked the dog. At first, I was like, "What is this, Terminator, an idiot?" Because he's like, "What's your dog's name?" He's like, "Max." He's like, "Hey, how's Wolfie?" And I'm like, "He just said the dog's name was Max, you idiot." But no, he was trying to outsmart the T-1000, and he does. And he says, "Wolfie's fine. Wolfie's fine." And then you're like, "Oh." And that that still is one of the craziest kills. The what do you call them? The knife arm through the mouth.
The milk.
Yeah, while he's poor guys is drinking some milk. You know what? He was yelling at the dog though. So that's what happens. Yell at the dog, you get a knife through the mouth.
That was a scene. This was one of the scenes I remember really terrifying me about the T-1000, because that's where you see just how quickly he can kill something. And then when you realize that he can shapeshift, and you're right. I like that
their voice too.
They're both very smart too. Like you said, where it is a game of cat and mouse, and it is. I like how you can feel like the T-800 is a small, like a lower level of machine, but it's trying to keep up with the T-1000. And I like that you'll notice the T-1000 is always a step ahead throughout this, by the way, like, which is very realistic to the fact that it's a more advanced machine and it's doing things better.
I'm just laughing. I don't know why I thought of this just now, but I thought it's kind of like Rocky IV. Like Terminator is sort of like the Rocky Balboa. He's got the old school. He's like the old school model where Drago had all this, like, you know, intense, well, steroids for one, but all these like crazy new gadgets he was trying. So it kind of, I don't know, kind of reminds me of that.
At first, I thought you were going to talk about the robot in the Rocky movies.
No, nobody talks about that. You don't talk about the robot.
But this was where, again, we see how badass that Sarah Connor is. And we also see, like, again, the T-1000 coming up through the floor, stabbing the guy in the eyeball. Another gross moment. As a kid, I was like, gross.
Oh, yeah.
But just so many cool things where you see just how dangerous everyone in this is, because Sarah Connor comes off kind of crazy too.
Oh, all that stuff with her is so great too. And yeah, I remember that gross dude licking her face. And you know what? He deserved every beating he got after that. So thank goodness, because if they would have just let that guy get away scot-free after that big lick. But yeah, she is just awesome in this movie. Just even the way she like grabs the police officer's like baton is just cool. She like grabs it, kind of spins it a little, then does like a cool little jog. And she's just, I don't know.
James really Cameron's great about having really powerful female action stars. Because also she does, similar to, for people who are listening to the show for the first time when you talk about aliens, and similar to Ripley, where Ripley is awesome, but it's never like for a woman. It's just a awesome badass that's beating people up. Same with Sarah Connor. She just wrecks people.
Yeah. And it's like believable too. Like you're almost like, yeah, I see this. It's just like this like badass kind of mom, and she's kind of seen the future and no one believes her, but you know, I don't know, it's just for being a person it's about robots in the future, it seems she's believable to me.
Speaking of robots in the future, this is a one of the things I like too about how literal Arnold Schwarzenegger is, where John Connor says you can't kill anyone, and the first person they come across, he shoots him in the legs.
Yeah,
says, he'll live.
That's so good. You know, Arnold's really funny in this movie.
He is funny in this movie, but he also still does it in a very he's a robot kind of way. Yeah. He actually does a very good job with this, and so we at this point we have the gang all together. and they're fixing each other up, and we learn more about how Arnold works. So they hot wire this sweet station wagon, and John Connor teaches Arnold how to talk cool, and Arnold tells them Dyson is going to make microchips that eventually lead to nuclear war. They find some old friends in the desert and take their guns. John has another therapy session with Arnold, while Sarah implies that Arnold is his new dad. Sarah has a dream of a playground getting nuked, and we see everyone burn and a bomb explode, and Sarah Connor's skeleton makes an appearance. Sarah Connor then carves the words "No Fate," which is the name of my band's fourth album.
Wow, you guys are doing well.
She leaves to go kill Dyson, hoping to alter the future, but can't go through with it. So Arnold peels off his skin to show Dyson just what his research will create, and Dyson agrees to help them destroy Cyberdyne. First things first, people who are driving old beat up cars that don't run well are typically very in need. And this group of people just stole from someone who probably needed that station wagon. How am I supposed to root for them?
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't really think about that because I really, this is the world. We got to save the world. We got to save John. So, this person will understand.
This person was probably like, "Don't worry, honey. I got the job interview, and it's going to change our lives. We're going to finally be able to provide for our family." And he goes outside, and his car is gone, and now he can't make it to the interview.
And what an excuse! Sorry, I can't make the interview. Why? This Terminator grabbed my car, but it's fine because he's with John Connor, who the other Terminator is trying to kill to save the future. So that's why I can't make it. You'd have to give the guy like, "All right, you get another shot," because that was preposterous.
I like that. So this was actually, though, interesting when they're bandaging each other up, because they give us a few important story clues or story beats where he says that I don't feel pain, but I'm given data when damage is inflicted that would be considered like pain. So now we're understanding that it's not nothing when it happens to him. But also he talks about how the longer he's a learning computer, so the longer he is around humans, the more he understands how to interact with them, which I never caught before, but this time I was watching more closely. And it actually, to me, I thought this is a brilliant thing to add, because any of the now humanistic things he does going forward makes sense.
Yeah. And did the version that you watched, did they open up his head a little bit for a second? Like they opened his head?
You know what? They didn't. I feel like I've seen that version, but now that you mention it, I did not see that.
I did. And I never saw that before. There's like a scene where they like peel open his head for a second, and then Sarah Connor's about to smash this like chip. And I'm like, I don't remember that, but it gave you the information about what you're saying. Because I think like the one that I always watched, I never saw that. You kind of just knew that he was learning things, but this one went like a little step further.
Yeah, I've seen it. The one I watched this time didn't have that, but I have seen that scene before. So
there's a couple. There's another scene. There's a scene earlier too where she like has a flashback and sees the love interest from Terminator 1.
Hicks.
Like, yeah, Hicks is he's in there for like a second, there's like a flashback, and I don't remember ever seeing that.
You must have had like the director's cut or something.
Yeah. There's definitely some scenes I didn't remember, but I did remember going back to Arnold's comedy chops when he's in the car doing like "chill out, dickwad, no problemo." Like so good. It's just like it's such a funny, perfect delivery.
This was funny to me because he talks about how he does register pain to a degree, which made it very interesting to me that the way he proves to Dyson that he is not that he's a robot is to literally like chop off his entire hand.
Oh yeah.
And again, another iconic moment when he does that is just this movie's filled with them.
And I was watching that scene and like it looks great. Like him just, I mean, it looks disgusting, but him showing like cutting it and then ripping his skin off. I'm like, oh wow, Arnold Schwarzenegger really is a robot. Who knew?
Right, he probably is.
That's fair.
So
I mean, with those pectorals.
Right. So as we
sorry, really quick. I wrote this in my notes because I wanted to see if you caught this. When we first meet or see Miles Dyson with his family, his wife licks the back of his neck for a second. I don't know if you noticed that, but I was just thinking that orderly guy licks Sarah Connor, and then Dyson's wife quickly licks the back of his neck for some reason. I was just like, does James Cameron have a little
does James Cameron have a licking thing?
I don't know.
Licking?
Maybe.
That's weird. That's weird. So The gang goes to Cyberdyne, and the police are in hot pursuit, and so is the T-1000. They start rigging the place to explode while another badass scene takes place, and Arnold starts shooting up the entire police force, not killing anybody. Eventually, the SWAT team gets in, however, and Dyson gets shot up. Sarah Connor escapes through a hole in the wall created by Arnold, while Dyson blows the whole building up. I'll be back, Arnold promises, shooting everyone in the leg as he grabs a truck and returns before driving off with the Connors. But the T-1000 jumps into a helicopter and is in hot pursuit. The truck and the helicopter shoot at each other before Arnold just brake checks the helicopter, and it kind of works as they crash. They crash. Also, the last chase before getting into our final confrontation, which is the name of my band's fifth and final album.
Man, you guys are doing so well. Oh, your final album.
Yeah, Final Confrontation was the fifth and final
Did you have a solo career after this, I hope? As John Connor.
As John Connor. John and the Connors is the name of the band. This scene is for me, one of the most memorable moments where he stands in the window with the big, like, chain gun, Gatling gun,
yeah,
and just shoots everything down. This is the first time I actually thought to myself, though, he can't kill anyone while he's doing this.
Yeah.
Before I just thought he was shooting, but I was like, oh, he's actually not shooting anybody.
Yeah, which is even more difficult. I feel he was just like, because I think the first time he was like getting them to run away, and then he just blew up all the cop cars.
Yeah,
it was very strategic.
And the way he uses the gas, the tear gas gun, and just like shooting people with the tear gas gun.
Yeah.
Instead of using it for the gas, he just shoots people with it.
I love the noise it makes too. It's like a thunk.
Thunk. For some reason, you can feel it when when you hear that thunk.
Well, usually because you hear the guy that's like. I gotta talk about Miles Dyson. This poor guy, man. Is he not super likable? Like,
yes,
his entire life's work, and literally telling him like, everything you've been working on your entire life, you're a genius, but you need to destroy everything. And he goes, okay, let's do. I mean, I guess after Terminator cuts his arm and shows you his robot arm, then I would believe him as well. But his death scene, I don't know why it's always stayed with me. As an actor too, I've never had a chance to, but I've always liked to have a death scene where I get to breathe like he does. I don't know why he's breathing so weird, but he's kind of like, I don't know how. Like, I just love his breathing pattern.
But you're right, because that is probably one of the most memorable death scenes. And maybe I don't know why no one's ever done that. I guess because it feels real. Like if you're hurt because he's been shot a bunch of times, and he's also trying to hold something up, and so having the and like I felt so bad for him because he was such a good guy.
Yeah.
And now as an adult watching back, I'm thinking to myself, would I really trust these guys aren't just trying to manipulate me?
Absolutely. And they don't even help him when she shoots him like in the top shoulder, and they don't bother to be like, all right, we're going to take you to hospital real quick. We're going to stitch you up. So like, deal with it, buddy. And his poor little son running over, don't shoot my dad. It's just like, poor
that
Miles.
son's gonna have to find out that his dad didn't make it. Oh, I'm gutted. That's sad.
That should have been Terminator 3, Miles Dyson's son.
Oh, that is the missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's the missed opportunity.
Yeah.
That is the story. I wanted to quickly throw out there. Remember when we used to say book it? Like for running, because they said that in this movie, and I thought that's some slang that's been lost to time.
Oh, really? I didn't catch. When did they say that?
John Connor at some point says, "Let's book it," or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, what a lost slang that is."
John Connor. We haven't talked about him much. When I was a kid, I thought he was the coolest guy ever. And they said he's 10. How is that boy 10? He's like the coolest 10-year-old ever. Then.
He is I thought John Connor and Evan Mack, for those who are listening, is back.
I was trying to travel to the past to slap my past self for wearing that one shirt I wore to this one dance.
Well, we're talking, Mac. We're talking about. As a kid, I thought John Connor was the coolest kid around.
Yes.
This guy's such a cool
kid. With the hair that dropped down right here.
Yeah, great hair.
His little raspy voice he would have. Doing like, I get to do whatever I want. I used to be like, yo, mama, can I ride my boy? You ain't riding your damn bike, man. Boy, the street lights is on, boy.
Yeah, like I used to try to get my hair to come in my face. Like I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you
listen,
wanted his hair,
for
not
those
the other
listening,
kids, not
I
the
know
other
I sound,
friend's hair.
I know I sound like Brian Gumble, but for those listening, I'm a black guy, so I can never get that hair to do that ever. So I was really hating. At least Jack was in the ballpark.
I was trying. By the way, it may have looked cool, not a fun haircut to have because it's just like in your face, like touching your face the whole time.
Damn, he looked good though. Furlong, baby.
I want to get your take on something. Andy and I were talking about it. Miles Dyson, the unsung hero of this movie, saves the fact that he gets shot up, still is holding like the weighted thing above the explosion. We just talked about the scene where Arnold shot everyone from the window, and now they blew up Cyberdyne. Miles Dyson goes out like a champion, sacrifices himself, and that death scene, the way he goes, like that sticks with me.
Yeah,
it sticks with me too, and it's those epic moments. Like I said, we're talking about the cream of the crop in action movies, man. We're talking about 1991. We're talking about the apex of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that moment is such an epic scene. What is an action movie without an epic death of someone that you haven't been on the journey with him the whole movie, but he has a part in the film that impacts everything, and you're like, why did you have to die?
Yeah,
and he fits the bill, and my heart still weeps from him. We're talking about 30 years ago.
Right?
Yes. Well, Andy had a great comment, and I want to get your take on it real quick. Again, I don't want to unpack too much because this can go a long way, but we were talking about, Miles Dyson, he had a family at home. The third Terminator should have been Miles Dyson's kid and his story about what happened after his dad died and how he doesn't like Cyberdyne.
See, I actually like that thought process because they started going off the rails after the first two, and that's actually a little more grounded, a little more nuanced idea for a film. That would have been a little smarter. You know what I mean? I think it would have kept things right in perspective, and instead of going off. Like, I'm not the biggest hater. A lot of people are. The third Terminator, I thought it was. I was like, let me get Arnold blowing up some stuff and I'm good. They just when they started trying to take liberties and try to start changing things around. But I like that idea, brother. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, Terminator 3, I think as a movie is fine, but as a Terminator movie, is where it gets a little rough. But
the first two are just so great.
Yeah, we're talking about the best of the best. One of the rare movies, I believe the second one's better than the first one, and it's a rare. But everyone says sequels are never better than first. There's a rare occasions sprinkled out through history. Terminator 2 was one of those.
So good.
And one thing, two things actually I wanted to mention, Jack, that I forgot. I was talking about how funny Arnold is when he does the fake smile thing. Is hilarious when he's trying to teach him how to smile. He's got this weird like face. I thought that was so funny. And then the other thing was, I thought you would appreciate this, Jack. You love when things pay off.
Yes.
And we saw young John Connor, hacking into an ATM and getting money, and then later breaking that thing back out to hack into Cyberdyne. I thought you'd appreciate that.
I did. No, absolutely. I did like that. It did make me go, what kind of 10-year-old is this good with technology and is also a troublemaker?
He's a phenom. He's the leader of the resistance.
Like if you're that good with technology, you're in your room programming all day. You're not out there causing problems.
And that's right on the cusp. That's when it starts getting popping too. The Apples of the world, the IBMs, when they started to hit their stride, man. He could have been on the cutting edge of that stuff.
Yeah, that's where maybe that's where Apple started really getting there. Like, wow, we could take over the world. Leave me alone, Apple. So as we get to the end here, the robots chase each other a little bit more, and I'm realizing this whole movie is basically one long action car chase. Yeah. So your analogy to Fury Road is actually very perfect because that's basically what both those movies are. Eventually, though, the big truck crashes into the foundry and a bunch of liquid nitrogen spills, and the T-1000 starts freezing. And in one of my favorite scenes, Arnold says possibly his most famous catchphrase ever and shatters the T-1000. We're going to do a little impersonation contest in a second. Don't you worry. But the fire of the foundry brings back the T-1000 like a phoenix from the ashes. my band's comeback album. And he soon reformed. There's a showdown between the T-1000 and Arnold gets his arm stuck in a gear. Sarah takes a stab at stopping the T-1000 and gets stabbed for her efforts and told to call for John. But Arnold is back, and they fight some more like Peter Griffin versus the giant chicken. They beat the tar out of each other everywhere, and Arnold eventually gets the lightning stabbed out of him. Pretending to be Sarah Connor, the T-1000 almost gets the jump on John, but the real Sarah shows up and empties a shotgun into him. But it's the final shell of a grenade launcher that blasts a hole into the T-1000 and sends him into the lava, and we get a liquid metal death scene. My band's farewell tour album.
Man, this band has some dope-ass album names.
They melt the chip, the arm, and eventually they slowly melt Arnold as he gives a thumbs up to the Connors. We end with Sarah Connor saying, now she looks to the future with hope, but we all know it's a foolish hope. This is, again, just a perfect setup for an action ending of a movie. It feels like a Foundry just is the perfect place for this kind of thing, this final showdown, Evan.
I can't tell you how much. Like I said, this is a true masterpiece in my opinion as far as action movies go. It gives you everything, tugs at the heartstrings, gives you action, gives you a great protagonist, a great antagonist, gives you people to root for, gives you stakes, and doesn't end as happily. It ends happily, but you know there's actually more darkness that lies ahead. A great hero's death. You know, you always they check all the boxes, man. What can I say about the final act and how it's represented? And I was a villain guy growing up. I always just loved how they are, but T-1000 I rooted against. You know what I mean? That's how you know that movie is so great, because it even made me go against my own like sensibilities. I used to love I love when the villains get ahead. T-1000, I was like, I hate that guy. He's a true villain. He's the heel you hate.
Yes.
And everything comes to a head, and it's such an awesome scene, and a thumbs up all the way into the lava. Is just what a way to end that movie, man. I cried when I was a kid. I'm not gonna I cried, man.
Yeah, I was like arguing with the TV when it happened. Like, why does he have to die? Like,
I was devastated.
It'll be fine. But Andy, to the point we talked about a little bit ago, where it talks about how Arnold learns from humans being around them. It makes sense why he's giving them the thumbs up and why he's being nice to them as opposed to just being a cold, calloused robot. Speaking of paying things off, I thought that was perfect.
I know why you cry. What does he say? I know now why you cry.
Let's just do it now. Hasta la vista impressions. We got here. Hasta la vista, baby. Come on, let me hear your guys's.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh, that's a really good one. I said hasta la vista, baby. Man, Andy just destroyed me and Jack.
I've been practicing.
Are you from Austria?
I did want to say one thing. a little bit. I did love that you were talking about the chase scene where he's driving like the liquid nitrogen. Nitrogen, is that what it is?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's very cold, but when T-1000 is driving that truck, I just thought it was such a great move to have Arnold and crew grab that guy's little pickup with it's like a little pickup with like a little roof on top of it.
Yeah,
I thought that was so funny. It was just like, of course the villain gets this crazy truck, and then like our heroes get like this little tiny.
He's a hell of a driver, T-1000, man.
Oh,
hell of a driver.
Yeah,
not everyone can just drive those rigs like that.
Very intense too.
That's actually what makes him the higher grade model, is he's licensed to drive big vehicles.
Yeah, you don't understand. You need special licenses to drive these things. And he's just keeping those around all willy nilly. He's a hell of it's like the transporter, man.
Yeah. At some point, if I'm John Connor, I'm like, Arnold, why can't you get like a cool car? Every car you get is just this rundown.
I don't want to piggyback on you all day.
Yeah, wait, can't you get a BMW or something? Like, why are we?
That is true. Yeah,
you're a robot from the future. This should be easy for you.
This is ridiculous.
I had a I think this movie ended really great, but something that if I was to rewrite, I don't like to do the rewrite thing, but and Evan, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was thinking John Connor should have killed the T-1000. He's the one that's going to grow up to be the big leader. This should have been his moment to kill the T-1000 and then show us that he's the guy to do it in the future.
That's a good thought. I never thought about it like that, and they do maybe some people don't like this, but they do a good job of making him you not thinking he could be the leader of the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that might be their best virtue, that he is like, he literally is so unlikely to be the leader of the resistance. And I think they kind of got like an itchy trigger finger when it came to that. So they were so in a rush to make him like a badass. But the second movie, he's like a deer in headlights. And I think maybe that's the part what resonated me and connected with me more, that he is like, I go, so this is the guy that's going to save us all, huh?
Yeah.
And I think I like that they made him that way. So I that's the only pushback I'll give you. I kind of like that he's that. So this is the guy, you know what I mean? And I think that was one of my favorite things about him, making him that unlikely hero, and you don't see it just yet.
Is there a part that maybe if you're in the future and you're sending people back, you go, John Connor's our leader, but we're losing. Maybe we should go back in time and get someone else to be our leader.
Is he the guy?
Yeah.
Maybe he's not the right one. Like if you could go back in time and get I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. I go back in time and get someone to call a different play at the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be like, no, we got to keep that the way it was. I think
if I had a time machine, I wouldn't even fix World Hunger. I would fix that Russell Wilson throw.
You and me both.
Like, Evan, you have one chance. I go, yeah, well, that was important to me. I'm still pissed.
Last thing I want to talk about, and that was the death of the T-1000 and how he goes through all the different characters he took over, almost like it was Souls. Andy, it was like, it felt very what's the guy from Mortal Kombat? Shang Tsung. Yeah, he felt very like he was like they made this thing that had no emotion have a proper villain death. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, we talked about how great of a villain he is, and he does get a great proper death. And I just love like their whole fight scene. Like, there's the part where Arnold kind of gets on the truck and just shoots the shit out of him for a second. I love that. And then when they get to fighting, though, you really see like how superior of a fighter he is, and you're like, how can he possibly be beaten? And I think his death is great, because you're kind of like, okay, that looks like he's dying.
Yeah,
that's to your point. I love that. You're right. They show that superiority. They show that he's a faster model. He's like a lighter. He's quicker. His processing time is faster. And they do that very subtly with just the different body types. He's a smaller guy, but they made him smaller because he's a little more sophisticated. You know how all the technology gets better and everything gets smaller. Remember how TVs used to look, and now they're all fast. But he's like the high def flat screen. It's just really dope to see how they did that with just getting a smaller actor. I love that. Robert, you don't got to work out. You sure don't need to work out for this? No. You're good. You're good.
Please don't. Please don't.
And one thing that blew my mind that I never knew. I was looking up a little trivia last night. Linda Hamilton has a twin sister, so that was actually a twin sister playing the double Sarah Connor. I thought that was
really
kind of blew my mind.
Man? How cool is that?
Wow, that is cool.
That's a great fun factor. That's some Terminator trivia for all you faithful listeners out there.
Yeah, so don't say we don't ever give you nothing.
There you go.
Don't you dare.
So that does it for just kind of final thoughts. I've said the word iconic probably 7 times in this movie review, because this is one of the most iconic movies, one of the greatest action movies, one of the greatest car chase movies, one of the greatest sci-fi movies. I loved it. Evan, you get last word. So Andy, any closing thoughts on the movie?
It was great. I mean, going back and watching, I was very happy that it definitely holds up, and it was more funny than I remembered. The action scenes I knew were going to be awesome, but even Arnold at the end says, I need a vacation. It's so silly, but I'm like, oh, that's great. The robots got jokes now. But yeah, I mean, James Cameron, just a master of cinema, and Terminator 2 still top 10 for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Evan, how about you? Any closing thoughts on this one?
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways is the it's incredible to see a man that was recognized as not being never going to be a good actor. No one's ever going to want to pronounce his name. Never going to be a blockbuster. When I go to action stars, if I can name 5 action stars to me that shaped the entire history of Hollywood, he's top 5. Top 3 if I'm being really, really nitpicky. And to see that though, and see a man that they say wasn't a good actor, but not realizing how hard it is to act like you can't have emotion. That actually takes a little bit of more subtle acting than people think. That sounds crazy, but his performance as the Terminator is way harder than people think. It is because as a human being, you're naturally not a robot. Therefore, you naturally have certain facial expressions that you do subconsciously. And one of my biggest takeaways, if you really watch that movie and you watch Arnold's performance, it's actually a brilliant performance by a man they said couldn't act. And that's probably one of the coolest things about the film. Arnold Schwarzenegger's acting his ass off.
Yes. Yeah. Because not only can you not emote, but also you need to be lovable.
Yes. Like, you have to be, you can't emote and be relatable.
Right. At the same time.
Man. That's tough.
And you have to convince Sarah Connor that you're a good robot now.
Oh, come on, man.
You got to do these absolutely great performance from this is such a good movie. And like we said at the top, aged so well. It was such a good, you could watch it right now. If they re-released it in theaters, I'd be like, yeah, let's go see Terminator 2.
That's Cameron, man. That's James Cameron being on the cutting edge of technology, brother.
But as we wrap up, we do have a little game that I like to test Andy with, Evan, and we'll see if he can do it. It's a game that we just copied from the internet. It's 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Can Andy connect someone from this movie to Kevin Bacon in 6 movies?
Andy, let's get it. 6 or less, baby.
Yeah, we got this. So young John Connor, played by Edward Furlong, was in American History X with Edward Norton.
Yes, he was.
Edward Norton was in Fight Club with Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was in what movie, Jack?
Sleepers.
With Kevin Bacon.
Man, he got it.
Evan, this little inside joke here on the show. Almost every time it comes down to Sleepers. Like for some reason, somehow, it always ends up going to Sleepers every time.
Nothing's better than older movies. I tell people this all the time. I watch film more than most human beings do, and there's nothing better than this gap there's a gap between even the late 70s to the 90s where your favorite actors. Well, I'm talking about 10 of your favorite actors are in one movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking about your favorite of your favorite that are now your favorite. You're like, he's in that, and he's in that, and she's in that, and they're in the same film. Like that is that weird gap, man, and it is spectacular.
Yes. Yes.
It's like a rap song with 15 features, man.
You're right, because now it's normal. There are always a bunch of features, but
back in the day, oh my god, you would get Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, you know what I mean, like in the Gene Hackman in the same movie.
Yeah, and that's how they would sell the movie. Is all these people are in it, and you go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go see
Julia Roberts, Richard Gere. I'd be like, doing what? Oh, he's the guy in the store. He's the clerk. I go, why?
You get Richard Gere for like one line.
Pretty Woman
Can I
too.
help you? Nope. Okay.
I'm like, Richard Gere. Go ahead, man.
Well, this has been fun. For everyone who's listening, thank you for listening to us. We continue the show next week with next year's movie, 1992. We're going to be chatting about Army of Darkness with John Koval. That's going to be a fun one. Then we go to 1993 for Jurassic Park, and we chat with Danielle Delaco. Jurassic Park might be the 90s movie of all time, maybe compared to T2, though. That's a tough one. And then 1994, my favorite movie, Dumb and Dumber, with Corey Baker. We're going to chat with them. That'll be fun. I'm Jack Farmer. You can see me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. Andy Rossi, where can the world find you and what you're working on?
The world can find me at just Andy Rossi or my film at Dead Body Movie.
And Evan T Mack, where can the world find you?
Oh, at Evan T Mack on social platform, Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. I appreciate you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite films. It was a lot of fun.
We appreciate you being on. It was a fun chat, and we'll have to do it again sometime. But for now, that does it for us, everyone, and we will see you all next year.